Thank you very much, Senator Thune. And now we'll turn to two witnesses related to my bills, and I'll make my statement on that. And then we're going to turn to another witness related to the racing car bill. And so why don't we have the second panel come to their seats right now. Welcome. Good to have all of you here. And I'll address Senate Bill 2661, the Smoke Ready Communities Act, and 2421, the Smoke Planning and Research Act. Communities are on the front lines across the country in wildfire country, and the West is burning. And thus, much more effects of wildfire smoke on agriculture, on our workers who work outdoors, certainly on our communities. And as a result, we need to address some of these increased challenges, and these two bills are designed to do that. The deadly wildfires are once again blazing across my home state and creating very poor quality smoke. A lot of people end up in the hospital because of the aggravation of asthma. So these two bills are very timely. Even as we sit here today, the Double Creek Fire in northeastern Oregon has burned over 43,000 acres in the last week. The Rum Creek Fire in Josephine County has burned over 19,000 acres, including homes and other buildings. And when you have fire, you have a lot of smoke, and it has a big impact on business, a big impact on the economy, big impact on tourism, big impact on outdoor life. There was an expose on the changes to Pacific Crest Trail that I was just reading this morning, where vast sections have been burned. The landscape looks entirely different than it did 10 to 15 years ago. And my wife, Mary, and I have hiked sections of the PCT and seen this firsthand while dodging forest fires and having to leave the trail because of those forest fires. And I can tell you, when you're out in the wilderness and you're out of cell phone contact and you're not quite sure where the fires are and you smell smoke, you start to feel very, very uncomfortable. Because of the fires raging across our state, the Department of Environmental Quality for the state of Oregon has issued air quality advisories this past weekend for many counties in Oregon where air quality levels are in the unhealthy category. 2 years ago, the Labor Day fires struck our state. They burned 6 towns to ashes. It looked like they had been firebombed in a war. I traveled 600 miles in my state and never got out of the smoke. I don't know that that's ever happened anywhere in the West. You could travel so far and be completely in the smoke. I went from the northern border to the southern border and back again. And last summer's bootleg fire sent smoke clouds traveling from Oregon to here, Washington, D.C., 2,800 miles. So this is not just something that affects a community, say, a mile or two from a fire. So many people being impacted. The American Lung Association's 2022 State of the Air report notes that 63 million people now live in counties with failing grades for daily particle pollution, 9 million more people than when they released their report a year earlier. 24 of the 25 worst counties for short-term particle pollution were in the western states because of the wildfires, 24 out of 25 of the worst counties. Now, we have had some progress. I created a $4 million EPA grant program in the Interior Appropriations Bill to support local efforts to address wildfire smoke hazards. I'm proposing increasing that funding. And through a program that here is referred to congressionally directed spending, In Oregon, we call it community-initiated projects, because the idea is the communities initiate the project, what they need, and we fight for them. Senator Wyden and I fight for them. And out of that came the Center for Wildfire Smoke Research and Practice at the University of Oregon to help address the need for Oregon communities to be better prepared for wildfire smoke events. And thanks to provisions in the IRA, like the Environmental and Climate Justice Block Grants, and the money for air pollution monitoring and reducing air pollution at public schools, we're going to make some much-needed investments. But as important as those steps are, there is much more that needs to be done. The Smoke Ready Communities Act will establish a grant program for air pollution control agencies to develop and implement programs to monitor and communicate with the public about air quality conditions created by wildfire smoke. It will equip public buildings with air filtration system. Many people have heard of heat centers where you escape the intensified heat, and we've had heat of 115 degrees in the city of Portland, something I never thought I would witness in my lifetime. It was very rare to have a day over 90, and then it was rare to have a day over 100, but nobody predicted kind of Death Valley temperatures to be in the Willamette Valley. And equip public gatherings, public buildings with filtration systems, protect for harmful events, and store and distribute N95 masks to be distributed. The Smoke Planning and Research Act would direct the EPA to create 4 centers of excellence for wildfire smoke. And essentially, the pilot project for that is the project at the University of Oregon. The centers will conduct research on the effects of wildfire smoke on public health, as well as ways in which communities can better respond to its impacts. The bill would direct the EPA to develop and distribute ways to reduce exposure to smoke and to reduce adverse health effects of smoke emissions, along with increasing the quality of smoke monitoring and prediction. And it would create a grant program to help the development and implementation of collaborative community plans for confronting the impacts of wildfire smoke. Both of these bills have received support from organizations that pay attention to the health and well-being of our communities and the people who live in them. And at this time, I ask unanimous consent for submitting for the record letters of support for bills S-2661 and S-2421, including a letter from the American Lung Association. Hearing no objections, so approved. With the threat and frequency of wildfires continuing to grow every year, communities are continuing to confront these dangers. When some of these intensive fires occurred, really, they've been steadily growing over the last 20 years, but over the last 5 to 10 years, been enormous change. We really realize how much more we need to do. As the wildfires burn, the smoke fills our skies, it degrades our air quality, it threatens our health, it threatens our economic well-being, and we need to do all we can, and these 2 bills will help in that. So I really appreciate the chairman and ranking member for holding a hearing on these 2 bills today. And now I have the pleasure of introducing a fellow Oregonian, Cass Mosley, welcome, who can not only personally attest to the challenges we face in the state from the wildfires and the smoke they produce, but also share her academic experience and her expertise about why these bills are critical. She is a member of the University of Oregon community for over 2 decades. She serves as a vice provost for academic operations and strategy. She is a research professor with the Institute for Sustainable Environment and a senior policy advisor in the school's Ecosystem Workforce Program. She is a recognized expert in natural resource policy, including forest, wildfire, bioenergy, rural development policy, and federal land management, and she has studied the changing face of Western wildfire management with a particular focus on how natural resource policies affect rural communities, businesses, and workers, including immigrant forest workers. We're thrilled to have such a knowledgeable and accomplished fellow Oregonian here to address this issue. Thank you.